My name is Rich Goyer. I work with the St. Bernard Wetlands Foundation as the tree project manager and have done so for the last 10 or so years. And we start off with little baby trees that come to us from the nurseries throughout the state. And we take these trees and grow them for a year where they have irrigated, weed-free environment so that increases their chance for success. These trees are then taken out to various planting sites throughout the parish in needs of replacing trees that have died previously from saltwater intrusion, storm effects, and maybe they just weren't trees there in the first place. We're heading out to, I guess it'd be the Kenilworth area of East St. Bernard Parish. We're coming up on the most recent edition of the levee that was built post-Katrina with concrete and steel pilings 100 feet deep and gates to close during flood operations, and anything outside this is open to what Mother Nature provides. It's rained enough to where it's pretty muddy here. Okay, the trees that were planted here were planted approximately 5 years ago, and they're designed to be permanent residents of this site. It shows the kind of growth that we can get with just 5 years of in-the-ground activity. These are deeply rooted trees that will last hundreds of years. The tallow trees tend to break up after maybe 20 or 30 years, and we'll have a nice forest of cypress trees that are native and will be long-lasting residents of this area. 2 miles down this road. This is basically a leased deer hunting and hog hunting site. This one's actually pretty healthy. It's just being shaded out by various I'll call them weed species. Once it gets above the non-native vegetation here, it'll do quite well. The oak trees that I planted are here. Oak trees are, I like to say, the first year they sleep, the second year they creep, and the third year they leap. But in this case, they're sort of still in the creeping stage. Once they establish a root system, they'll probably do quite well. But we're heading south to Delacroix Island, where the road ends basically in the Barataria Bay. Some of the ghost forests, the live oaks that died from previous storms, salt water intrusion. Most of the people that live here either fish for a living or lease or charter fishing trips. And of course there's the people that have lived here for generations that really don't want to leave. They grew up here, their parents, grandfather, and grandmother all lived here, and they're not interested in leaving. And you can see that from buildings on the right, they've had to elevate their homes to get any kind of insurance that prevent them from being damaged. So everybody down here is on stilts if they want flood insurance. But there's some that, quite nice establishments. We're standing in an area outside the protection levees in a place called Delacroix Island, or the end of the world as some people have designated it. And these cypress trees were planted approximately 5 years ago and are doing very well here, despite the fact that they've been subjected to some tropical storms that have brought overflow of salt water into the site, but they didn't last long enough to provide permanent damage to the trees. So we hold great hopes for these kinds of situations for the future. At the end of a great sunny day in spring of South Louisiana, we've had an opportunity to look at some of the cypress regeneration activities that our organization and others have been doing in trying to restore wetlands to their former selves, as well as providing protection from storms, and of course the environment that produced the diversity of species that we had at one time. We've seen trees from little to fairly large that have been planted at various intervals, and hopefully these trees and others that we'll be planting in the future will continue to provide us with the resource that we would like to preserve.